NFTs in space games. Love or hate the idea, it is happening, specifically with some of the big titles such as EVE Online. The question is how far this is going to actually reach. My previous video on Star Atlas, a blockchain-based space game, was certainly a bit of a controversial subject, but I wanted to revisit that subject and expand upon some of the topics that video touched upon. There's also a number of things going on with NFTs in gaming that not everyone will be aware of, so I wanted to discuss that too. I also wanted to touch upon a very sensitive subject on whether or not NFTs will enter current space games. Some have already started doing this. EVE Online is one such example, and more on that in just a bit. Now, up front, I want to say that I'm definitely not a fan of NFTs in video games. They present a very real risk of undermining gaming in general, and we've seen what heavy monetization of games has done to the games industries in recent years. Loot boxes and paid boosts, as well as paid content gateways, are just the tip of the iceberg if NFTs take off in a big way. To some, it may feel like an unlikely prospect that this would ever happen. I'm sure many of you out there feel that NFTs are just the next big fad or the next big gimmick. However, keep in mind that is exactly what some people thought originally when the internet started first making its big appearance. Regardless of what people feel about NFTs and blockchain gaming then, blockchaining nonetheless is getting a really big push. Recently, Square Enix boss President Matsuda stated that the growth in both the NFT market as well as the metaverse are going to inform Square's own business practices in the future. He doesn't want the company to be left behind and feels that one day trading NFTs is going to be as common as trading physical goods. Square Enix then is continuing its research and development into blockchain gaming, and they believe that the concept of play to earn will become a big aspect of some areas of gaming, and that can mean both single player and multiplayer games. As for what this means for games in general, well, Matsuda has this to say. I realise that some people who play to have fun and who currently form the majority of players who have voiced their reservations towards these new trends, and understandably so. However, I believe that there will be a certain number of people whose motivation is to play to contribute, by which I mean to help make the game more exciting. Traditional gaming has offered no explicit incentive to this later group of people who are motivated strictly by such inconsistent personal feelings as goodwill and volunteer spirit. This fact is not unrelated to the limitation of existing user-generated content. User-generated content has been brought into being solely because of the individual's desire for self-expression and not because of any explicit incentive existed to reward them for their creative efforts. I see this as one reason that there haven't been as many major game-changing content that were user-generated as one would expect. So, bottom line here, basically he's trying to put a bit of a twist on this. Most people, he realises, play games to have fun, but a lot of gamers out there, a lot of people out there play to contribute, and for people who follow this channel, something like that would be the dangerous The Distant World event, where players went off on a big expedition across the galaxy. That took a lot of organising. People obviously did that to play to contribute, to create an event for other players, but I'm sure they also did it to have fun as well. What Matsuda is saying here is that players should get a financial incentive, a financial reward for doing these type of activities. Or to look at it another way perhaps, if you go to EVE Online, the entire economy there is player-driven. Players make that economy to have fun. They contribute towards all the ship construction and all the other assets construction to have fun, to build up their in-game rewards. Now, could that perhaps be financially rewarded with real-world cash? This perspective represents a fundamental shift in what gaming could represent. In short, Square Enix are committed to making this happen, and the bottom line, blockchain games are happening whether you like it or not. The only question at this point is how far into existing established gaming circles that they will reach. So this brings me on to one of the main points of this video. Will blockchain-based gaming affect current space games? Well, the answer to that is certainly a very clear yes. CCP have already set a precedent here by introducing NFTs into their latest Alliance tournament. The Alliance Tournament 17 took place in November. This is an annual event, a large-scale PvP competition. Now, as a part of this tournament, NFTs were issued as a reward. Each kill that occurred during the tournament was converted into an NFT token. This would be awarded to the player that made the kill. These players were then free to do with the NFT as they pleased, and that of course included collecting them or selling them. CCP also created some further NFTs to commemorate the top 10 best moments of the tournament. However, the company won't be revealing more on this until later in January. But that said, looking at the Killmail website, it seems that the sales of NFTs hasn't exactly been popular. However, a few have sold. This one has a bid on it of 5 TES, which at the current exchange rate is around $25. Now, it might seem odd to some people that CCP would follow the blockchain and gaming route, and for now, the Killmail NFTs are certainly not generating a lot of money. However, it's unlikely, I feel, that CCP are going to back away from the concept, at least not yet. Do keep in mind that the owners of CCP are Pearl Abyss, and Pearl Abyss are heavily into any form of monetization in gaming. You only need to look at Black Desert to see just how deep this can go. So in a way, it could be argued that CCP have certainly set a precedent for NFTs in space games. The question is whether or not other companies would also take them up as well. An obvious candidate for this, of course, is Star Citizen. Recently, Star Citizen YouTuber Morphologis addressed this subject, and you can see a link to his video in the video description below. Do go check it out. There's also an extensive thread on the Star Citizen subreddit discussing the very same topic. Now, I find the takeaway to all of this to be very interesting. Essentially, even the biggest supporters of Star Citizen are unsure if CIG would dare to introduce NFTs. Many feel it's a distinct possibility. It seems the vast majority of people, though, feel it would be a very bad idea. Generally, the feeling here is that it would be fundamentally too much of a change to the focus of what Star Citizen is all about, and perhaps understandably so. Sure, CIG already sell ships for real-world money. They also already sell concept ships. The difference here is that concept ships haven't yet been implemented into the game, and to all intents and purposes only exist as a concept design. This naturally led to the meme about CIG selling ship JPEGs, of course. But the idea of directly purchasing a virtual ship from a games company is very different to purchasing an NFT of a game asset. There are a multitude of reasons why it's different, but this chart addresses 3 of them. Firstly, NFT owners want a return on investment. They buy NFTs to make money, that is, to later sell them at a higher price. This in turn has an effect upon the value of in-game items. By its very nature, it means the fundamentals of the game itself become tied into the real-world economy, and this has all manner of consequences. And one of the outcomes is that eventually the game itself and any actions within it potentially become about investment and real-world profit rather than fun. Now, say what you like about Star Citizen, but most of its backers of the game and many of the WoWs have pledged so much money to the game because they want a fun, immersive experience. The idea of introducing NFTs into the mix would potentially undermine that and change the foundations upon which Star Citizen is built. So whether or not CIG are willing to go there remains very much an open question. But in either regards, it's almost certainly a very risky prospect. Moving away from Star Citizen and towards Elite Dangerous, you might think that the answer to the question about Elite Dangerous, whether Frontier would go here or not, is a little more clear. After all, Frontier developments have always been very keen to avoid any paid items that impact gameplay. You cannot buy ships with real-world money, you cannot buy weapons or indeed any other game advantage. So this might lead us to conclude that Frontier would avoid NFTs. However, that said, Frontier pushed cosmetics at every opportunity. In fact, the recent introduction of the new SRV, the Scorpion, saw Frontier heavily pushing the related cosmetics for the vehicle, right from the very first moment that it launched, and that included touting it and promoting it on their own live streams. NFTs then would fit perfectly into this monetization method. Imagine for a moment a procedurally generated unique cosmetic item. For example, a procedurally generated ship paint job would be, well, unique. A one-of-a-kind item, and there could be many of them. And this perfectly fits the idea of an NFT. But the question is, would Frontier go there? Personally, at this point in time, I find it unlikely. But in the future, well, who knows? Now, moving away from space gaming, elsewhere in the blockchain gaming circles, things continue to develop. Cryptocurrency, blockchain and NFT are all phrases that took off in a big way in 2021. An obvious result of this is that there are now a lot of people out there trying to ride on the bandwagon. There's a huge number of people then that are pushing their blockchain gaming products. As a YouTuber, not a single day goes by where I don't receive an email requesting me to take a look at their latest gaming project. Some of these look graphically impressive, others look like a project built on GeoCities. Yes, they look that basic. These then come from some large, pretty much established companies, it seems. Others come from lone individuals. Now, I don't want to start pushing too much attention to any of these projects, as I want to keep firmly away from them. That's why I haven't covered them, and I won't cover them regardless of what they offer and what they ask. But I do think that this is a subject that is worth talking about. And that's simply to bring attention to it, so well, you all know what's going on. The vast majority of these projects then are offering a payment to YouTubers for coverage of the game. Sometimes this payment is offered as real-world cash, other times it's offered as cryptocurrency, or even simply being given an NFT in the related game. Now, I've ignored all of these messages. I don't even reply to them, as I'm simply not interested in the slightest in giving these type of projects any attention. However, just because I won't cover them, that doesn't mean that other YouTubers won't cover them. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is to make you all aware of what's going on in some areas, and that there is fundamentally far more going on than just what's happening with the big players in the gaming industry. Yes, we hear from the likes of Ubisoft, we hear from the likes of Square Enix, all of them wanting to get into blockchain, but it's equally true that hundreds of smaller projects are taking shape, and some of these are certainly getting some momentum behind them. Now, I will mention 2 projects here because, well, I can't really talk about it without mentioning any of the projects at all. One is Troverse. This is an example of a graphically impressive looking project. Another is Cybertrolls, which is basically a project on the other end of the spectrum. Now, like I said, I don't want to show them, but if you're interested, then you can certainly go and Google them. The takeaway point here then is there are literally hundreds of projects emerging that are just like these 2 examples. Now, I can't really cast any judgment on any of these projects, including the ones I've mentioned. Some will undoubtedly be genuine and the real deal and probably lead to quite some success. Others, however, are almost certainly going to be anything but genuine. The trick is figuring out which are which, and from this point of view, from where I'm sitting, there's no way that I can actually do that, so best as far as I'm concerned to completely avoid them. And that's where things stand as of this moment in time. NFTs, blockchain gaming, are becoming a pretty complex subject. It's certainly something that I know a lot of gamers are very unhappy about. I'm not too happy about it either. I think it represents some serious problems for gaming. But that said, it's also worth keeping in mind that they could represent and bring some big changes, some positive changes to gaming as well. And those would be the black swans, the unintended consequences, and the unknowns. After all, who would have imagined back in, 1990s, that gaming would have changed the way it did based on the introduction of the internet? You know, there's a lot of possibilities for the future, not all of them are necessarily bad. All in all though, what do you feel about NFTs and blockchain gaming? Do let me know in the comment section below, I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.